Bible verse is about selfishness. So many times we come out of church, we come out of church inanity, if you will, and we want to be the pastor, we want to be the it man, we want to be that guy because usually we can't find nobody else, right? There is nobody else who wants to teach and do these things. So the majority of people figure, well, hey, I must be the teacher, I must be the guy, or whatever, right? Now, sadly, the problem with a lot of these things is what we find is a lot of these people are not teachers. What the truth of the matter is a lot of these people are just self-absorbed. There's egos, there's everything in the way. Now, the enemy, I would submit, and I'm not trying to say anything other than what I'm saying, right? The enemy will use your zeal and your ego and your arrogance and all these things to make you feel like you're the only one with this truth. And the more you talk to people that say, I've never heard of anything like that, you might come up with that conclusion of you're the only one with this truth. And you're the only one that knows the Sabbath and Yahweh and Yahshua and feast days and all these. But that is just learning tools, right? These are all things to help others with. And many times there's so many people out here that they think they heard, they think they've done this, they think they're the ones. And some people think they need to take 3 years to produce fruit, and some people think they need to wait 7 years, and some people think that they're just whatever. But truly, we know who we are, or we should, right? So I would ask for you to pray and submit yourself to Yahweh and ask him if you don't know. Many times it takes a while to figure out what we're doing, right? When I was a Pentecostal preacher, I just thought, hey, I'm just going to leave from this and go to this and go do that. And everybody's going to follow because all those people in Pentecostal church want the truth. That's why you went, right? That's why I went. Not so. There's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of cliques. A lot of people, believe it or not, go to church and even Sabbath services for the food. I know, right? I mean, out of the words of their own, they go for the food, they go to be heard, they go to put their perspective out. But what we really see in scriptures, what we see with Yahshua was they came and they read the Bible, they read their scriptures, they read the Torah, right? And no, that's not just the Torah portions. I know a lot of people, well, I do that. I go to Sabbath and I drive 4 hours and I get some chicken along the way and I do this along the way and I do whatever I want. That's all you being selfish, really. The Sabbath day is the most unselfish day of the week. And there's 4 of them, usually, right? So what does that tell you? It's days for us to realize what's going on. It's not days to go buy Cokes and candies and pops and drinks and for the kids to go to the park and all these things. We are so misinformed. And most of this is because we don't want a teacher. It's really rebellion if we're not careful. A lot of the things that we do becomes a rebellion thing. And it's because we want to do these things, right? Shalom and blessings. Says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain concept. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. That is a far cry than what we see, right? We see all these things on even television. We are usually a product of what we came out of, right? So when we see Preacher X up there preaching and everybody's like going over him and thinking that's the greatest thing ever, a lot of that becomes an ego. A lot of that, I would submit to you, a lot of these young people are wanting to be something, right? We all want to be something. I believe we have a desire to be something, right? I think we see in scriptures, people want to be David, people want to be Solomon, people want to have this, they want to do that, and they have this desire, which there's nothing wrong with that desire, I believe. The only problem is how we use it, how we wield it. It's just like the scriptures. If we're not careful, we wield the sword and we bash and destroy more than we help. And a lot of that, again, is because of ignorance, right? We come up and but when we're not taught, when we're not learned, if you will, if we're not educated in these things, that's all we know, right? And that's why good counsel, good wisdom means so much. Because when we just do it on our own, it becomes a very, very, I ain't gonna answer to nobody thing. And then that's great though, right? I can't be wrong, right? When you get into that, who's going to tell me I'm wrong? Who can say I'm wrong in what I'm doing? Who can say, but within that, if you're not careful, your ego and pride take over and you don't have to listen to anybody. People said you something or tells you something. A lot of times, oh, they're with the crowd. They're with, especially in this, right? Messianic Hebrew roots, the way, especially in something where everybody, it seems like, is against you to begin with. It's pretty easy to say, oh, that's another hater. That's another person that just don't care. That's another person, right? So if you're not careful, you get on top of this mountain and you start being egotistic, you start being arrogant, and there's, some of that, if you can walk on water, if you're doing things that you ain't never seen anybody else do, sometimes that can be a head thing, right? It can be something, well, nobody else can do this, but that's not what it's about. It's all about Yahweh. It's all about Yahshua. But when you're seeing these things happen and you're unmatched, what do? You're like, well, I don't see anybody else doing this. I don't see anybody else taking care of this. So, but that's in our own realm, our own way. That is what we're supposed to do, not we're special, right? Where nobody else is doing this. Nobody else should do what you're doing. We come together, yes, we assemble together, but in ways you have your own fingerprint. Nobody should be doing what you're doing, right? You should have your own path that Yahweh Himself has put you on, that Yeshua redeemed has put you on. But one way or the other, you should be on that path of doing what you know to do through the Ruach. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Wow. This is the opposite of the world. Totally the opposite of the world, is it not? It is so far from the world. The world says, put me first. I'm doing it first. And if we're not careful, that again becomes what we are, right? And I've heard it so many times, my ministry, my ministry, my ministry. And their ministries is usually trying to be another, if you will, Joe Osteen. And I use that because almost everybody around the world knows Joe Osteen, right? Almost everybody in the world knows Creflo Dollar. Almost everybody in the world knows these ministers, if you will. Are they? But the thing about it is, when that is our goal, we miss our goal. The scripture doesn't say be known of everybody, does it? Does it say the whole world? Yes, you will walk with the kings of the earth. Yes, you will do these things. But it doesn't say that you will be the arrogant, bold person that we see on TV, you know. And I just heard something not too long ago of one man standing up there that's running for president saying, oh, peace. When I get in, peace. Oh, when I get in, we're going to have peace. Folks, if we know scriptures, that's just as dangerous talk as World War III, right? That may be more dangerous than talking of World War III. Everybody cringes. Oh my gosh, World War III and nuclear, blah, 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 blah. But this man just stood up and said, when I raise my hand, you will know peace. I didn't hear him say safety, but that's it, right? Peace and safety. When they say peace and safety, maybe we may have that. Maybe it may come in, but if it does, we know what's next, or we should know what's next, right? No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. This is a lifelong journey. This is not a one-day sermon, a one-day talking, a one-day thing. 1 Corinthians 10:24. This ain't a one-day, none of this is a one-day episode. That's what a lot of people come into, right? Is I'm saved, so big deal. I sit on the pew and that's it. I would submit to you, are you saved? I would question, are you saved? Not because of what you believe or what you use or whatever, I would say, how can one get anything if they don't do anything? Right? No, we know we ain't gonna say that, right? We ain't gonna go down a different path. Yeshua saves, Yeshua's blood. But at the same time, Yeshua said, if you love me, keep my commandments, right? So I guess the real question of that would be, do you keep the commandments? Because he said, if you love me, you keep his commandments, which means you keep the Torah. You do what he says. What relationship does nothing of the other and eventually keeps going? Well, you know what? I like pea soup. Well, I'm not cooking pea soup. Well, I like pea soup. And for years and years and years and years, it goes on. The battle wages, if you will, the husbandry and wife thing. Isn't eventually the guy going to be like, well, she don't love me. How could she love me? And this is, for newbies and people, but when you really get down the road a little while, you start questioning things, especially when you get into things, right? Well, how can someone love me if they don't do anything I ask of them? Now think about that. If we as humans been married for 20 years and you say, well, I've done a lot. And we start weighing what we've done, right? We start weighing, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this, and I've helped them, and I've been to the hospital, I've been through this, I've been through that, I've been through all this. And I asked for a bowl of pea soup, and I can't get a mere bowl of pea soup. Pretty one-sided, right? Pretty one-sided, pretty much start questioning the love, the relationship. Now, if we can do that as human beings, don't you think the Father's looking and saying, hey, I sent my son. He sent his son Yeshua, right? That's the message. That's the good news. But he sent his son that we might. I say that a lot anymore. We need to start questioning or circling and underlining and highlighting those ifs and mights in our Bible. If you love me, keep my commandments. So would that not be if you are saved? How can one be saved if they're not in a relationship? Matthew 7 talks of, depart from me, I never knew you. See, a lot of people don't know the Father. And if they don't know the Father, how could they know the Son? If the Father sent the Son, and he said, if you knew Moses, if you knew his teachings, then you would know me. How can you know what you think you know when you don't know anything? This is, to me, the pivoting point of arrogance and ignorance and pride. Pride says, I don't owe you nothing. Pride says, I don't have to do anything. Pride is my boat floating around with cannonballs on the side, and don't you come near me because this is mine. I built it. I put it together. It's mine. Who told Noah to build a boat and why? Right? And what did he put on it? A bunch of animals. After all that work, think of this human side of scriptures for a moment. I would ask of you and charge you to think of the human side of scriptures for a moment. He built this big ark, this big old boat, if you will. All the years, all the sweat, all the tears, all the hurting himself, all the things that he might have skinned his hand and bled, and there might have been blood on them boards from him working so hard. And then he puts animals on it, right? Could you imagine that? I mean, that's a great thing. He saved all the animals. But don't you think when he was working, maybe he thought he might have a couple friends join him? Don't you think that there might be that family over there that he kind of talked to before? Don't you think that he was thinking, well, maybe this is going to be a boat full of people, right? Maybe I'm going to save thousands of people. And then here comes the ducks. It's like, wow, right? I mean, the human side of humility sometimes is some hard pie to eat, right? It's some hard things, especially I think when we believers, we read scriptures, we get that zeal. We want to see hospitals emptied, right? The world don't. They would probably do something to you for that. But I mean, as far as me, I want to see hospitals emptied. I want to go to cancer places and especially children hospitals and see them empty. I want to see kids leaving, skipping, happy, not because of me, but because of what my Father done, what the Ruach has done. See the difference between what we want, what we look at, and there's probably 100 people out there on the same platform that don't want that to happen that way. They want it to happen so they can be the next Joe Osteen. They can be the next Benny Hinn. They can have buckets full of money. They can do all these things. But even if you've gained the world, it's what we have to understand. Even if you've gained the world and you lose your soul, it's profit nothing, has it? If you went and done all these things in his name and even healed these people and done these things, what do we get? If we don't have eternity, then we have problems, right? Let's go on. Love is what? Patient. Love is kind. People say, well, I fall in and out of love with this person. I love this person and I don't love this person and I da 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 da, right? Love, love is forever. You love and you care. Now, no matter what that person's done, don't get me wrong, that person might have done something, committed adultery, so you can't be with them. You don't want to be with them. You don't want that to happen again, right? You don't want to every neighbor in the neighborhood at your house while you're off doing things. Understandable. But at the same time, it doesn't mean it's changed your feelings, your emotions, your right. If it was most men's will, they would never get divorces. They would never have a divorce on most cases because of these things. Even though the wife has betrayed them and did things that they would horrendous things to them, right? But most men that let that happen or have that happen, I should say, let it happen like you can do anything about it. But what happens there? They love. Love is still kind. Someone's did you so wrong and you're still like, okay, well, I'm trying to work with you. I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to help because ultimately we're helping the kingdom out, right? We're doing things for the kingdom of Yahweh. Let's go on. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. You see people out here and they see you doing good. They see you get 100 likes. They see you get some thumbs up. And what do? They want to bash you. They want to throw something on your comments. They want to throw something in there. They want to put derogatory things or put up things. That is not what love does. That is not a true brother or sister. And if they are doing these things, they're just uneducated in these things. They don't know what they're doing, which means literally they're working for the enemy, right? A lot of people don't want to say that, don't want to go there, but really, you're either working for the master, Yahweh, or you're working for an enemy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. You've wronged me. You've done me wrong. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 5. Okay, but we forgive. Now, don't always mean forget, right? Don't always mean we forget what's going on, because when we forget what's going on, then that comes up, that can happen again, right? Same thing with adultery. Okay, we can have somebody adultery and we can say, okay, you just got to get out of my house and get out of my stuff and get away from me. Because if you don't, if you say, okay, I forgive you, well, guess what? And guess what? And you know, I've seen this. It's horrible. People have literally people coming to their house saying they're friends because they kept putting up with what was happening. And everybody else knows, you know, everybody else knows why people are coming over. And even why the guy's there, they come over and have a beer together and do that. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you not see what's going on here? No, she would never do it again. Not the fifth time, not the seventh time, not the. Now, why does that all matter? Because you don't read into things, right? The wedding supper. If we are the bride, we can't have all these other gods. We can't have all these other ways. We can only have Yeshua and Yahweh. If we start letting every other God in, if we let anybody speak any way they want to, then what have we got? And it's really confusion, right? I mean, we don't want to push people away, but you can't have Buddha salvation. You can't have Muhammad salvation. You can't have Jehovah Witness salvation. You can't have Catholic salvation. We can't put it all in a bottle like Joe Osteen and Oprah tells us, and we're all going the same place. There's only two paths that everybody's going to. One is to Shelly M, the heavens, you know, and the other is to hell. There's only two ways that this eternity is going to play out. And that's pretty clear in scriptures. And I believe, according to scriptures, there's already people there. The rich man, Lazarus. Where did Elijah go? Is he just walking up on the clouds? Has anybody seen him lately? Is he skipping, throwing rainbows at people or something? You know, Yahweh, forgive us. We don't take a lot of this scripture literal. We want to take it and say it's our paraphrase, or because, and I get it, because we don't want great grandma to be, and we don't want great grandpa to be, and we don't have to judge them. Why even consider where great grandma is? Why even consider where this one is? Is that a trick of the enemy? Oh, but what about your bestest grandma? You know, she only went to this, and she only was a Baptist, and she was a, what's that got to do with you and your salvation? We can't do nothing about people that are in the grave. Nothing. And trust me, I had a brother that passed away when he was 27 years old. There's nothing, there's times I've prayed and wanted him to come up out of there. Talking about being raised for the dead. Where's your faith? But we don't know. We don't know what people do. But we can see the arrogance and the ego. And sometimes we use that as a prop, if you will, right? I think a lot of people tried to get Yahshua with that. I think that's why a lot of the Pharisees and Sadducees and all these others was after him, that he probably carried a certain aspect to him that a lot of people thought would be an arrogance, right? Well, who are you to say you're the son of God? Who are you to say who are you? Right? I mean, think about this. You imagine somebody came to your church, your assembly, and said, hey, listen to me, I'm the prophet. Oh boy, don't you know? Didn't you get the memo? But yet, right in their liturgy or in their saying or this and that and the other, they talk about prophets, right? What did Yeshua say on the subject? Of all the people that should have said something that we listened to, shouldn't it be Yeshua? Did Yeshua tell them that there is no prophets after me? He never said that. He said, think not, I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. He didn't destroy anything, which means to me he didn't stop in it either. He didn't say, well, that's it. And you can't really take one verse out of context. Well, it was only until John. Then that kind of leaves Yeshua as what? Because Yeshua was truly a prophet, right? I think we see that in John, and I think we see that from John, Yochanan. Not the one that kept the other one, right? Let's read Revelations. Who is the revelation? You see what I'm saying? So you can't say, well, they was only until John, and then you have Yeshua, because that kind of contradicts, does it not? So we can say all kinds of things, and we have to be careful, folks. We have to be very, very surgical, if you will, because scriptures, people have changed. Men have changed these things and put things in there they shouldn't, took things out they shouldn't. We know this because the scripture says, woe be it to anyone who is added to or taken away, paraphrasing for time and everything else, right? But woe be it to anyone who is added to. I will add to him the plagues. Woe be it to anybody who's taken away. I will take them out of the book of life. We don't want to be reading some scripture, and that's how important it is to him that somebody is taken, added to, or we need our 2 or 3 witnesses. I think this happens with calendars. It happens in dates. It happens in times. It happens with religion, if you will. They take one verse, and that's the whole religion. Let's go on. 4. Where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Wow. You turn on some of these things that just seemingly was awesome and it just went smooth, and you get the two readers together and it seems like the ruach is there. Maybe I shouldn't even say seems like. You can feel the ruach is there. This person's talking and this person's talking, and it just goes together, and you can almost see the smoke and the fire and feel these things, right? It's like, oh wow. Wow. It's like the upper room, if you will. It's like, wow, the tabernacle. It's like we are here. We have found that we are amongst the greatness, which is Yahweh, right? And then you go to something else and it's just a train wreck. It's like, what is this? The same people, the same show, the same stuff. And I get it. Sometimes we're tired. Sometimes we don't feel good. Sometimes we don't have everything. Sometimes our internet blacks out. We're in some dark hole place somewhere, whatever. I understand that. Right? Just like I need to crop this and put my things up there a little bit better. But all the less, what are we doing? For where you have envy and selfish ambition. This is where you see a lot of the YouTube, the Facebook, the people that are doing things. It'll come out eventually. Envy and self-ambition. There you find disorder and every evil practice. Sin, right? That's James. James is telling us, James 3:16 is telling us how you can spot something, how you see lights caving in and people motoring and buttering and don't know how to get. And there's a difference between nervous, right? There's a difference between talking and getting up in front of people, or even being on YouTube or Facebook and talking, and you say something wrong, and you say too many ums, or you say too many ifs, or too many uhs, or whatever. That's human flesh. The Ruach is what sends the truth. The Ruach and his word is what comes back non-void, right? It goes out and it doesn't come back void. And I would submit to you that's even in judgment. Even in judgment. Well, I told these people and I told these people and I told these people. They never came to truth. They never changed their life. They went in the grave and they never did anything. It might look as void, but guess what? On Judgment Day, they are not going to be able to say, I never heard the truth. I never heard of Yahweh. I never heard of Yahshua. That's to be a liar, right? And if they do say that, they would definitely be a liar. Oh, wait a minute. Let me replay this. We don't know how it goes. Speculating at best, but think about it. Hold on. Let me replay this live for a minute. Right there on Sabbath day, August the 24th, 2024, you heard about Yahweh. You even seen the name.